الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمد المصطفى المرتضى المجتبى وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تلا. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم اهدنا وسددنا وتب علينا واجعل فينا خيرا واجعل منا خيرا واجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك الكريم. Lillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. Have the good intentions. Make sure you are in this session for the sake of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala only. Allah is the only one who grants the reward. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah. Let's get started right away, insha'Allah ta'ala. We'll continue explaining this booklet, How to Debate with the So-Called Salafiyya. And we've reached this section, the Wahhabi reasoning behind their incorrect belief. Just to do a quick recap before we start reading, I'd like to quickly review some of the different points we touched on so far. We talked about the difference between the Muslims and the so-called Salafis. Why I'm saying so-called? Because it's not permissible to refer to them as Salafiyya, because they don't follow the Salaf, not in their creed nor in their practice. All of what we're saying now is telling the difference between them. We talked about the true path of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah and the obligation of following Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. We talked about the Wahhabi attempt to discredit the nation at large. That means the Wahhabi conviction that most of the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is deviant. This is a firm conviction of the Wahhabi, even if he might not say it explicitly. You'd more likely have to pull it out of him, but this is his belief. Not that you want to pull it out of him. Not that you want to encourage a person to say anything wrong. We talked about the madhabs of Ahlul Sunnah, because we want to clarify who are Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So to explain who Ahlul Sunnah are, we explain the issue of the madhabs. These four madhabs in the creed are all Ahlul in the fiqh, sorry. These four madhabs in the fiqh and the rules and the detailed rules are all Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, because they share the same creed. Their creed is one. That's Ahlul Sunnah. Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah is number one, the majority of the nation. Always will be, always has been, and always will be. The companions didn't disagree about the basics of the creed, so there was no faction there, except for the hypocrites who used to hide their belief. Then the Tabi'un, those who came after the Sahaba, most of them followed the creed of the Sahaba, the vast majority of them. This is Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And then those who came after them, most of them followed the creed of the Sahaba. And those who came after them, and those who came after them, the Sahaba and those who came after them. And like that, every generation was always the majority until today. Except that Ahlul Sunnah, this one faction that's the majority, among their practice is al-madhahib. The people of this one creed, when it comes to their rules, al-fiqh, they have madhahib. That means they follow different major scholars, mujtahidun, top-ranked scholars, those who can deduce the judgments directly from the Quran and the Hadith, the judgments, the rulings, halal, haram, wajib. And this, as we said, is a practice of the Sahaba. Now we won't go back into that. Practice of madhahib is a practice of the Sahaba, for sure. So never feel intimidated by a Wahhabi who asks you, did the companions practice madhabs? For sure they did. Among them were mujtahids, and among them were those who are not mujtahids. If they were in the absence of the Prophet, if they were away from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they had at their access mujtahids, they would ask them, and those mujtahids would answer them from their ijtihad. Or if that was after the Prophet's death alayhi salatu wassalam, and in the presence of the Prophet himself alayhi salatu wassalam, they would ask the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We also mentioned that there's two madhabs in the Aqidah, the Ash'ari and the Maturidi. The Ash'ari school and the Maturidi school of Aqidah. And they have the same creed, but their terminology is different. And we're not going to talk about that in any detail. That's not our discussion here. Another time, inshallah, a lesson that is specifically in reference to the Ash'aris and Maturidis, like what's an example of how they differed, that's another issue. That's far from what we want to achieve now, inshallah, so that we can complete this book. And we spoke about the different names that have been used for the Wahhabis, and we spoke about the fact that it is correct to use the word Wahhabi, linguistically correct, for the one who is attributed to Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. That using the term Wahhabi is totally in compliance with the rules of Nasab. So for a Wahhabi to say that it's haram to use the name Wahhabi for someone who follows Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, then he's either ignorant or a liar. And we spoke about the correct belief in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And we spoke about the Wahhabi belief in Allah, their attribution of organs to Him. And no, they don't use the word organs, usually. They'll say, I never said organs. So yes, we're using the word organ. We're saying the Wahhabi attributes organs to Allah. The Wahhabi will say, I don't attribute organs to Allah. And we're going to substantiate that, inshaAllah ta'ala, that really they do believe that Allah is attributed with organs, but they just don't say that He's attributed with organs. Usually. And that's where we are now. So the Wahhabi reasoning behind their incorrect belief.